Hey, Yinz guys and gals, gather round for a journey like no other. It's time to hop on board the Where Yinz Goin podcast, proudly brought to you by Dreams by Design Travel. From the rivers that meet at the point to form downtown Pittsburgh to the furthest corners of the globe, that'll be your compass, your confidant, your companion in that as we explore the wonders of travel. Kick back, relax on your couch, and let the wanderlust wash over Yinz as we discover new horizons and reminisce about old favorites. With Dreams by Design Travel by our side, the sky's the limit. Join Matt on the Where Yinz Goin podcast because when it comes to travel, the journey's just getting started. And now, without further ado, let's give a shout for your guide through the highways and byways of travel, the man with a map, the voice of the steel city, Matt Trader.
How Yinz doing? Welcome to the Where Yinz Goin podcast, brought to you by Dreams by Design Travel. I'm Matt. I'm your host. Today we're going to get into part 2 of our episode about Gettysburg. And joining me again are Tyler and Roger. And so we're going to get into the rest of our discussion about Gettysburg. Hope you enjoy. We're going to actually get into the battle now.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, we go on tangents.
This is part of why I wanted to talk about you guys for this episode, is I want this background, this perspective, because it's understanding all of this that will lead to a more meaningful visit to the battlefield. And now we're walking through the battlefield day by day. So there's 3 days of the battle, July 1st through July 3rd of 1863. And we're giving you an idea of what to see, where to see things. And so the battlefield, the lines are basically north-south. The Union is on the eastern end, the Confederacy is on the western end, when everything settled down. But things actually start a little bit in the north.
North and then the east and the northish, yeah.
Yeah, John Buford, he is riding through so the Union gets word that the Confederates are marching towards Gettysburg. The Confederates want a decisive battle in the north to then send a letter to Lincoln saying, all right, let's have a truce. You know, we've proven that what we can do. Let's just give us what we want. Let's go home. And so there's a kind of a spider web of roads that are all leading towards Gettysburg. And the Confederacy is coming in on several roads. The Union's coming from the other side on several roads. And John Buford is kind of to the west of Gettysburg on what's called Seminary Ridge. And that's where he meets the first Confederate troops who were directed not to engage the Union.
Yeah. And the thing is, sorry to interrupt here, the Confederates even went through, what was it, June 26th?
June 27th and 28th.
June 26th and 8th. Well, before that, too, didn't they go through Gettysburg?
Cavalry did.
Yeah, they went through Gettysburg before. Oh, I thought infantry did, too. I thought early did.
No, it was actually Stuart first.
Stuart. They went through Gettysburg before, and there was, I forget when the first soldier was killed during the Gettysburg campaign. It was actually not at the Battle of Gettysburg. It was just leading up to it. And it's like, oh, they're up in the north now.
We better get moving.
We don't know where they're going to stop because we were in Harrisonburg.
Yeah, Buford ends up in Gettysburg by accident. Too. Yeah, he originally didn't want to. He originally didn't want to go through. He was trailing Lee's army, and he was ordered to find the Confederates.
And he saw them leaving.
He saw them on the 29th,
and he's like, "Oh, they're still
here." Pettigrew was in Gettysburg getting supplies on the 29th, and he was on his way to Gettysburg in force, reconnaissance in force.
Yeah.
He
Which
sees
we like to do a lot.
Buford's cavalry. He thinks they're militia at first. Then he sees their cavalry, and he turns his division around and heads back. And then in the movie Gettysburg, you see it. Buford standing in that orchard, and he says, "That's Lee's main body. That's the turn." That's actually Pettigrew's troops leaving Gettysburg because he sees Buford. He goes back and reports to his division commander, which is Harry Heath. Heath says, "No, you're seeing things." Then he goes to A.P. Hill, who's the corps commander at Cashtown. He says, "Hey, Pettigrew's seeing cavalry," and he thinks it's the Federal Army. And A.P. Hill says, "No, it's militia. It can't be Federal cavalry." Because there again, we have this stereotype that A.P. Hill and Heath are West Point officers. J.J. Pettigrew went to the University of North Carolina. He's a Tar Heel. So they don't believe him. He's new to division command. He's new to a brigade command. This is his
So
first
is
brigade.
Hill, too.
Yeah, Hill's new to a corps command. Heath is new to divisional command. So they have no idea what they're really seeing at the time.
And we didn't know we didn't know the ground either, because we don't know where Stuart is at this time.
Yeah, so Jeb Stuart, who is the Confederate cavalry general, their job is to give information, scouting, and giving information back to Lee of where the Union was, their position. But Stuart's out.
What do we like to quote? He's up north getting his name in the paper.
But this is when you're going to see me defend Stuart for the first time.
Yeah.
Stuart is given orders before the Gettysburg campaign to disrupt Union supplies, to gain information, and to harass the Union Army, to keep them off of Lee's flanks. So what he interprets this as, and you got to remember, he had just lost the battle, he just fought the Battle of Brandy Station,
Which came to a draw.
Yeah.
Biggest
So Stuart felt dishonored from this because he was caught basically with his pants down
Twice in a year.
And he thought he needed to regain his honor. So when Lee gives him this order, Stuart thinks that he has permission to do this right around the whole Union Army like he did in 1862. So what he does is he swings wide to the east. He swings too wide, and now it's Lee's army, the Union Army, and Stuart's cut off. Stuart can't ride through the Union Army, so he has to get ahead of it. Well, when he does this, he captures Union supply trains, and he tries to bring all these wagons with him, which slows him down even more. So Stuart is the product of his own demise
And downfall.
But I see Stuart's point at the same time. He's doing what Lee told him to do. He
just did a little bit of extra.
Just a little extra he shouldn't have done. Extra credit didn't help him. But Stuart, don't take anything away from Stuart. Stuart is a good cavalry general. I mean, he's cavalier. He's willing to take chances. And he does fight when he gets the opportunity. He's not going to shy down.
And he's well tested because he fought against Apache, too.
Yeah. He used Indian tactics.
And if you know the French and Indian War, you know how they fought.
Yeah. So Stuart, that's the first time, that's probably the only time you'll hear me defend Stuart in this whole campaign. But yeah, it's Lee. Buford sees Lee's turn, and that's what makes Buford stay in Gettysburg. It's not Reynolds, or not General Meade, not General Hancock, not any of these other guys. It's Buford that decides we're going to fight at Gettysburg.
And in the movie Gettysburg, it's Sam Elliott who plays him. So
Did a good job.
Did a very good job.
Which he actually went to West Point where Buford is buried, and there's a picture of him looking at the grave, and I guess he asked West Point to look at records and all that, and he studied the role, which makes the acting better, I think, when they go and actually study the person they're portraying.
I think he overacts a little bit. He's like, yes, they're clear eye. He's like pointing his eye.
Yeah, there's some parts.
Up a little bit
Buford was not a dramatic person. From what I've read about John Buford, he's a fighting general. He doesn't believe in the pomp of the military.
But in that aspect,
he's a soldier. He's like
they're dramatic in the Sam Elliott.
Yeah. I always compare Patton to Stuart, or to Buford to Patton. There's nothing frill about it, but he's going to fight. And he pretty much picks the battleground on the night before the 1st of July.
It's like old fuss and feathers and old left and right.
Yeah, that's how Buford acts.
And then we came up on the first. He saw us on. We came in. We didn't try
on the 29th. He saw us.
Yeah, we didn't come on the 30th.
No.
And then because we were telling people, we come back on the 1st. Old Harry Heath. He's coming down the thing, and he runs into him. Oh, how far was it out?
He hit him about where the Marsh Creek Bridge is now.
Yeah, because there's a marker, and it was like a picket line.
Yeah.
First shots of the Civil War.
Yeah, Battle of Gettysburg, and it says, a lieutenant's like, let me borrow your carbine, let me shoot.
He was part of an Illinois cavalry.
Yeah, and he's like, let me start off this ball.
Yeah.
And he takes a pop shot at an officer.
And then look, that's how the ball was started.
Yeah, and then it all, we deployed, and
you got to remember, Buford is smart. Buford was one of the only cavalry generals that believed you can dismount cavalry and fight them like infantry with carbines. He has Gamble's brigade, Devon's brigade, and Wesley Merritt. He doesn't really use Wesley Merritt. He uses Merritt mostly as reserve. He engages Devon and Gamble.
Saying Devon was on.
He was up
right.
toward the Oak Ridge area in Gamble.
They're behind like a fence too,
Yeah.
so they have a little bit of protection.
Yeah.
And as reenactors, not to take respect to the actual battle, seeing dismounted cavalry actually work, and we get to see it once in a while. You normally don't see it. You either have dismounted cavalry, which are just reenactors with carbines, which we call dismounted, or you have cavalry. The past few years, I've actually got to see cavalrymen get off their horse and do how they would. Like, someone grabs their horse reins, take horses in the back, and they fight on foot and then get on their horses and move again. And that is something really cool to see and understanding the aspect.
We saw it at Gettysburg and Antietam.
Yeah.
We were there. What's neat about the cavalry, too, is you got to realize Buford's not fighting with a full brigade because every 5 man has to hold the horses.
Yeah.
So he's not fighting with everybody up on the line. And everybody likes to think that he's fighting this Alamo-type battle where it's like defend or we're going to die here.
Lose everything.
He actually falls back in progression up to Hers Ridge and then McPherson's Ridge. And by the time he gets to McPherson's Ridge, that's when he sees Reynolds.
Because he did send a message to Reynolds, hey, the 30th, he said, hey, can you kind of hurry?
Yeah, I need you.
And then Reynolds comes up, he tells his division commanders, hey, you need to get up here. And then they start deploying kind of like this.
It's Doubleday's division pulls up.
Ames.
And Ames. Oh, Ames is 11th Corps.
Okay.
You have Doubleday comes in the line. Wesley Meredith not Wesley Meredith. Wadsworth comes in the line. He's got the famed Iron Brigade.
They're scary.
They are scary. We've actually fought against the Iron Brigade,
and they're scary.
They play that part.
The reenactors will pull that part on how they were.
Yeah.
And Ruford
Dawes.
That man they gave him the leader of the Iron Brigade, and he had heart of iron.
Yeah, he was tough.
I think he lost like 9 color bearers, and he's the one that charged the railroad cut.
By himself with the battle flag.
Yeah. Because the Confederates fell in the railroad cut on the first day and were just like, entrenchment. We just
11th
shoot
Mississippi.
away.
Not the 11th Mississippi.
Not
Yeah. It was Davis's brigade. So it was Mississippi and Tennessee troops.
And heck, one of the Iron Brigade regiments were all professors, weren't they?
Yeah.
All school teachers.
Yeah. School teacher regiment.
And they became hard.
That was their part of 19th Indiana.
Yeah, they became just hard score fighters, and it was like, you're kind of scared, and we don't like you.
What helps
to be in their class afterwards.
No.
What happened to Reynolds is the head of the Iron Brigade, and he's telling them, for God's sakes, clear the woods, and that's Hers woods. And he's telling them to hurry up and get in the line and clear the woods because he wants to flank the Confederates as they're coming up the Chambersburg Pike. He gets killed. The Corps command goes to Admiral Doubleday.
And this was 30 minutes into the fight when Reynolds
Doubleday has no idea what's going on, so he puts them up on McPherson Ridge and holds. Doubleday makes a last stand at the college on that day, and then he falls back through town. But off to his flank, he has a sigh of relief because here comes Oliver O. Howard in the 11th Corps. And Howard is going to put Barlow and Adelbert Ames' divisions on line. He's going to keep a division back at Cemetery Ridge to hold Evergreen Cemetery. You have corps commanders on the field, but it's the officers leading these brigades that are taking the initiative.
Like Ruford Dawes. He saw those guys couldn't get, and when he charged them, we couldn't get out of the thing because it was too steep. He captured.
You also have General Baxter in the 11th Corps. He puts his men behind a stone wall and lays them down. And one of them was the 11th Pennsylvania. They lay down behind this stone wall. The Confederates have no idea they're there. The Confederates says, "Okay, we're going to flank the Union Army." They start rushing toward this rock wall. All of a sudden, this line of blue stands up 150 yards from him and fires a point-blank volley into it.
And let me tell you something.
That was D.H. Anderson's brigade that got massacred.
As reenactors and seeing Union guys pop up out of nowhere and a volley coming at you, we know it's blanks. That's still kind of scary.
Yeah, it puts a fear in you.
It puts a fear in you. Like, we do it for fun. We do it to teach and all that. It's still dangerous, but it puts an aspect. This is kind of scary, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
And it puts you what they went through, and it's like
you have this anxiety.
Yeah.
It's even though we know it's
we
blank.
know the outcome.
when
It's
they
still
pop up,
scary.
It's probably the same for them. When we pop up out from somewhere, like the woods or...
And we do a rebel yell, and they don't know where it's coming from. It's
the
scary.
rebel yell. When did that originate? Was it with Jackson of Yell Like Furies?
Yeah,
he kind of started it. It's more of a everybody says what the rebel yell sound like, and we really don't know. There's no recording of it.
Yeah, there is.
Well,
not an original
recording.
There's a recording of veterans doing it in 1912,
yeah,
which
but
is really cool. It's like a whoop.
It's like a high banshee with a whoop sound. It was more like a scream. Where the Union soldier is more of a hearty huzzah when they move forward.
Which you hear in Gettysburg when the Iron Brigade charged down.
Yeah.
Either way, you don't want to hear a rebel yell in the woods.
Yeah, because you know what's coming after that. And
actually, Liberty Rifles did a thing on Little Round Top, and you don't actually see any of them. And they're doing the thing of the Alabama boys charging up Little Round Top, doing a thing for a program. You don't see any of them. You just hear this yell, and then you see probably I forget how many were in that regiment. They did actual numbers of the regiment. You just see a line of gray come out, and it's like, it gives you shivers, and you're like, that's kind of scary, because they put all the people watching it where the competitors are going to come towards them, and it's like,
yeah, they were up in
that video. You are absolutely correct.
That is scary.
You hear it, and then it's like Jaws.
Yeah.
You hear the music.
Mm-hmm.
Dun,
and then it appears.
Something bad is coming. I don't know where from. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It put the fear got it.
And a lot of Union soldiers broke just because of the yell.
They heard the yell, they ran.
Because they're like, I don't want to be around what's coming.
Yeah, it's like on the first day of Gettysburg. You know, everybody says, why doesn't Doubleday move forward? He had the initiative. I think Doubleday played it smart. He has no idea what's in front of him, Confederates coming up the road. He knows that's Hill's Corps, but he also knows Longstreet, General James Longstreet's Corps is somewhere over here, and Ewell is over here in the north.
Ewell did come down from the north.
He did come down from the north. And so I have a friend, she always asks, why didn't Doubleday just attack? Because there was Confederates flanking that day.
Coming, yourself, and
then you're in trouble.
Hang yourself out the drive.
And we kind of just
and you gotta remember,
came in like this.
And Doubleday doesn't have the full First Corps with him. He only has 2 divisions. He doesn't have the entire Corps because Reynolds' Corps was still spread out coming up the road.
And it takes a while to get moving.
It takes a while for him to
especially in July.
Wearing a wool uniform in 100-degree weather. It took him a while to get deployed.
As Roger mentioned, the Union gets pushed back to Cemetery Ridge. No, Annunciation here. There's Seminary Ridge.
That's where the Confederate line was.
Cemetery Ridge.
And that's where the Union was.
So, yeah, they get pushed back to the Cemetery Ridge and Cemetery Hill. The Confederates do not push the attack. It's getting towards dark. And, again, this is going to be a problem with the Confederates of they do not push that initiative. And they are a little bit too tentative, especially with, as I mentioned, a few guys who are new to command after Jackson's death and the reorganization, people getting promoted a bit sooner than they probably should have. And so they're not quite sure what to do. Union ends up thinking in up on Cemetery Hill, Cemetery Ridge, and then that leads into the second day.
I believe that the most controversial order of the Battle of Gettysburg is Lee's order to Richard S. Ewell, new Corps Commander, 2nd Corps.
And he had a lot to live up to because that's
You're following
Jackson's
Jackson.
Corps. Yeah.
And you remember, Ewell had just come back from being injured. He was injured earlier in the war. He had a leg missing.
From the Iron Brigade.
From the Iron Brigade. And he says, if it's practical, will you take the hill? Well, if that order had been given to Jackson, you got to remember, Lee gives his generals leeway. And now, if he would have sent that order to Jackson, if it's practical, Jackson would have looked at the order and said, what does if mean? Does he want the hill or not?
Jackson probably would have took the hill without even the order given. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we had him on leash, too. That's a bad thing.
And Ewell was more timid than Jackson was. Granted, Ewell was under Jackson. Now, he was good under Jackson. Ewell did great under Stonewall Jackson because he would follow Jackson's lead. But now he's in lead. He's got division commanders who think they're better at the job than he is. One of them's being Jubal Early. The other one being Robert Rhodes. They believe that they should be in... Gordon was another one who believed they should have been in charge of the 2nd Corps, not Richard S. Ewell. So you have this little infighting in the 2nd Corps Army of Northern Virginia at the time where division commanders thought they were better than their Corps commander.
And we just didn't he didn't take the hill. He's like, I don't know what to do. Trimble yelled at him. He's like, he was like, give me, what was it? Give me one, and it's in the movie Gettysburg. Give me one brigade, and I can take that hill.
But he works his way down, and he's like, give me a division, I can do it. Give
me
a regiment, I can do it. Give me a brigade, and I can take it.
Yeah, and the thing is, I know for a fact those Confederate soldiers had to hear them digging all night and building, and they knew the next day.
Oh, that was mentioned.
Yeah.
It's mentioned in the movie and the book.
We have to
hear them digging up there right now.
Yeah. And then imagine in real life, those Confederates heard digging, and they knew the next day we got to try to take that hill.
There's a scene in the director's cut that really emphasizes
the director's cut.
If you're going to buy Gettysburg, buy the director's cut because it has.
They came out 150th edition. Yeah. You can get both of them. It shows Battle of Sharpsburg. It shows other parts of Gettysburg.
Yeah, but there's a scene in Gettysburg they cut, and it's all three division commanders with Richard S. when they're talking to Lee on the night of the 1st. And he says, can you take the position, General Early? He says, well, we can, but it's going to be at high losses. I don't think it's prudent to attack it. And Lee says, well, I think we should. Lee said, well, Longstreet thinks we should withdraw the army from Gettysburg and fight somewhere else. And General Hill was there, and General Hill says, I don't think it's a good idea. That could hurt the morale of the army. And finally, Lee snaps.
We don't like retreat.
Yeah,
if you noticed.
And Lee snaps and says, well, we can't attack and we can't retreat. We can't stay here indefinitely. So if we don't retreat, we have to attack. And you see Lee starting to lose his temper with two of his corps commanders because they're not doing what he wants them to do. Longstreet didn't want to fight there. Longstreet was half-hearted in the battle. So it's not the Army of Northern Virginia's most shining moment of the war.
Well, if I ever had a time machine, I always wanted the South to win certain battles. Like I said, I want slavery to end, but I want certain battles to win. I'd always like to go in time and smack Richard Ewell with a book, and then just leave.
You would do it too.
I know I would. That's what I want to do. That's my life goal. Find a time machine, just smack Ewell with a book.
Smack him with Gods and Generals.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's the movie Gettysburg. Watch this.
You failed.
Yeah. Gods and Generals. There's a line in the book, I think it's in the book or the movie, probably in both. It says, there's nothing so much as God on earth as a general on a battlefield.
Yeah.
So, but the second day, the fighting shifts more to the south. At least the focus, the big main thing, is more to the south. With Sickles, we mentioned before, he's down in the peach orchard, and he kind of gets routed. He comes down off this hill through Devil's Den, which is a big rocky area, into this peach orchard, trying to engage the Confederacy, and he's overextended. He's out and exposed, and he just gets rolled over.
Yeah, because Sickles thought the peach orchard was higher ground, because where was it? Chancellorsville. He's like, they got the higher ground on me again once. I'm not letting it happen again.
And the crazy thing is about this whole battle is communication during the 1800s. It wasn't like you can get on a cell phone and say, hey, move your... It was you had to send a writer or send a written message.
And signal corps, which is what
the signal corps.
Which, if you ask historians, what would they have machine guns or tanks? Gary Edelman, who's probably one of the best historians for Civil War, he's like, screw that. I want to take a tank or a machine gun. Give me a walkie-talkie or a cell phone.
Yeah.
And that would win your battle.
What's crazy is about Sickles' predicament is he moves his corps without permission. The Army commander has no idea what Sickles is doing. And there's a council of war, and he meets with General Hancock and General Howard and all these corps commanders, General Humphreys and Skiles and all these big generals. But Sickles is nowhere to be found. And he's like, where's General Sickles? And finally, a writer runs up and says, hey, Sickles just moved the entire Third Corps. And finally, Sickles shows up. He doesn't say a word. He says, yep, stay on your horse. I want you to ride back. I'll join you in a minute. Sickles rides off. So Meade rides out to the peach orchard and says, what are you doing here? And Sickles loses temper and says, can't you see this is higher ground? And Meade says, I know that, but I put you back there for a reason to guard the two little rocky hills.
Which, little backstory of Sickles. This man is the first person to plead insanity in court for killing his girlfriend's lover.
Yeah, and 2 years later he's campaigning in court.
Yeah, and that's what money got you back then. Yeah. It gave you position in an army.
But back to Sickles at the peach orchard, he defies orders. And Meade's losing his temper with him. And Simon Sickles says, fine, I'll drop back to where I was. I'll go back to my original position. And finally, Meade was said, I wish to God you could, General, but those people over there are not going to let you. And about that time,
Opens and
General Longstreet showed up. West Virginia University. But Meade, he's losing temper, and like I said, he looks. I wish to God you could fall back, but those people were there not going to let you, and that's when Longstreet makes his attack.
Because Longstreet kept moving, and because the Sickles moving up, he had to go further around to be like, because the original plan was a flank attack. Confederates love flanking, if you've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And
so I'm going to pause you right there. Okay, so this is on the right end of the Union Army.
Yeah.
Is wrapped up around, Cemetery Hill up there?
Mm-hmm. Goes around Culp's Hill, down Cemetery Hill, down toward the village.
And so it's basically like a fish hook, as they describe it.
Yeah.
Where the hook is on the north and it runs south.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Confederates see this, and so they're going to send Longstreet to the south to try to loop around the Union Army to either flank it or come in from behind.
Yeah.
And this is where Longstreet starts marching south. Again, they do not know the land, so this causes problems. They march out along one road. They realize that they are exposed. The Union can see them.
The artillery could see them.
Yeah, and the south of the Union there's Little Round Top, which is a hill that's rocky. They call it the Rocky Hill.
Yeah.
And then there's a bigger one, which is Big Round Top, which is a wooded hill, which the Union has nobody up there yet. And so the Confederates are going to try to go around to their right side, the Union left, and to flank them by coming around. Longstreet has to backtrack and then walk around march around farther in order to get there. So it's taken all day to do this. The Confederate attack has been delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed. Eventually, the Sickles down the Peach Orchard. Confederates are attacking. Sorry, Turtle, go ahead, continue. I just want to give that background.
No.
But when he does attack, when Longstreet does attack, he attacks with Kershaw, Benning, Hood's division,
Barksdale,
Mississippians. So
that man rode a Clydesdale in the battle.
Yeah, he was a big man, though.
Yeah, he was.
They start pushing in places now that are famous with the battle.
Peach Orchard, Wheatfield, Devil's Den.
Yeah.
Places you would look and be like, why would you fight there?
Yeah. So as the Third Corps starts to break down, you have heroes that people don't even mention, and that's Bigelow's battery holds off the Confederate advance, but his lone artillery unit holds off the Confederate advance by itself, and they're doing what they call fire and recoil, which means you fire, you don't even pitch the guns to the limber, you just pull them by hand to the next location and fire, and then pull again. And at the Tossel Farm, unfortunately, Bigelow's battery meets its cruising in.
I've seen artillery batteries at reenactments where they fired a shot and you get that whole battery and caisson hooked up in 2 minutes and roll that thing, get it up, fire it again, and that is impressive to do.
Because they all roll in thunder.
And it's scary.
As they push back, because I did Union for a while, and I can tell you,
Traitor.
yeah. There's one corps that the Confederate Army actually feared, and it's because of its commander, and that's General Hancock's Second Corps. Second Corps Army of the Potomac was like the shock troops of the Army of the Potomac. These guys that was where the famed Irish Brigade was. We got to give a shout out to the 140th Pennsylvania.
Yep, we fight against them. He was one of them.
Yep. And the 140th is under Zook's brigade of Cadwell's division, Hancock's corps.
Zook didn't make it.
Zook didn't make it. He was killed in the battle. But as they come up, as the Third Corps is falling back, Meade knows he's in trouble on the flank, so he brings up the Second Corps to plug the gap. This gives time for
First Minnesota.
First Minnesota was in the Second Corps. So as the Second Corps is holding all this back, the Fifth Corps, which is
we have to make a shout out to the First Minnesota.
Yeah, make a shout out.
They
They
had what 83 guys? No,
they went in with 300 and some walked out 86.
Yeah, 86. And we know a person that did a Liberty Rifle event where they did the charge on the anniversary. They came back, a thunderstorm hit, and they had all their guns stacked. All but 86. Like, all of them but 86 fell. And it's like, okay, that's kind of creepy. But those men went in and just hand-to-hand combat
with bayonets and stuff, the entire Confederate division.
One regiment, not even full strength.
So I think when you go to Gettysburg and you look at these monuments, you got to remember the guys who were leading these, not just the generals,
The captains,
and the field officers. Atchison of the 140th is a prime example. Captain Atchison.
He has a rock mark for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a rock mark
On the
140th in the stone where they just buried him.
And he's now buried in Washington County in Pennsylvania.
I'll have to go see that.
Like I said, as the Second Corps is doing this, it's holding back in the peach orchard, or in the wheat field in Devil's Den. That's giving time for the Fifth Corps to deploy, and that's Vincent, and that's where Chamberlain comes in.
And it wasn't even the Corps commander put it up. Vincent Strong, how many did he take? Like 4 regiments?
4 regiments. He had
4 regiments.
Yeah, and that's all he had. That's all his brigade had.
And he's went, I'm going up, and I'm putting him here.
Yeah.
And that's
he had no direction where to go.
Yeah.
He saw the ground. He said, I'm going to put the 20th Maine on my flank, and I'm going to wrap
83rd
around
Pennsylvania.
83rd, the 16th, the 44th, and he lines them up there. So
and
he became an
unsung hero.
Yeah.
He didn't unfortunately make it.
He was promoted to brigadier general and
Right before,
he didn't know it.
O'Rourke
O'Rourke's
on top of Little Round Top, who has a restaurant named after him. He was on top of Little Round Top.
44th New York.
Yep, he stood his ground. And there's so many unsung heroes of Fifth Corps. And it's like, you ain't even the Corps commanders when they should have been.
Yeah, I like telling this story, and this tells the confusion of the Battle of Gettysburg from both sides. General Schweitzer he's Colonel Schweitzer, commands a brigade in the Fifth Corps. He's ordered to the wheat field to help Cross and Zook and the Irish Brigade and all them get out. So he goes in, and he gets into the wheat field, and he realizes, I don't know where I'm at. So he motions for his aide. He said, you go find General Barnes, and you ask where I'm supposed to be. He says, okay. So his orderly takes Schweitzer's horse and takes off. Well, he comes back with just the saddle. And he goes, Colonel, we got a problem. And he goes, well, says, there's Confederates behind us, and we're about ready to be cut off.
They were down there below Little Round Top coming like this. Yeah, they were down coming like this, and the Confederates are coming like this, and they're like, oh, the Union are up there.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
I'm down here.
Yeah.
I'm in a bad spot.
So you have confusion all over that battlefield, but you have these brigade commanders taking over as division commanders.
Corps commanders.
And they're putting their troops where they think they could do the most damage.
So, that's that game I brought. I've showed you the map before. You've seen the map.
Yeah.
You get to do that and play those roles. And that kind of makes understanding that confusion a little bit.
But as that teeters out and we all get into Chamberlain about his glorious bayonet charge, and that was miraculous.
But there was more heroes, I think, on the front side of that Little Round Top.
Yeah.
He saved the flank, but in my opinion, there's more heroes on the front.
And it goes down the battle line, because after that battle kind of teeters out with the nighttime coming on.
The right.
On Little Round Top.
No, up on the other side.
Oh, yeah, okay, I know what we're talking about.
Evergreen.
But as the twilight hours hit, Second Corps makes a demonstration attack, actually a good attack, and that's Hayes' Wheat's Tigers, along with the Stonewall Brigade.
Louisiana Tigers.
Yeah, and they come up into Cemetery Ridge and actually push the Union back into the cemetery, where the National Cemetery is now.
And if you go
on the right side of it.
Yeah.
So they've been attacking the left side of the Union flank the entire day up on Little Round Top, and then now they're going to come around the right-hand side to...
And if you go to Gettysburg, the actual entrenchments from the guns are still there. And if you see the ground just from where they came up, it's like...
And it's an open field.
It's an open field, and it's little hills like this, and it's like...
You wouldn't have wanted to
No.
Either side.
You think Pickett's charge... You always think Pickett's charge bad. You see that, and you're like...
Barksdale Charge is called the most glorious charge of the Confederate Army, not Pickett's Charge. And I like to bring this up, too, to people who are going to visit Gettysburg. Everybody goes to see Pickett's Charge. They think that's where the most men were killed. There was more men killed on July 2nd than July 1st and 3rd combined.
Because more of the Army was showing up, too.
So, I always tell people the second day is the bloodletting.
Because we're getting in, we're forming up, we know where the enemy is.
Now let's go get them.
Pickett's charge was a last straw.
Yeah.
But, the fighting on Evergreen Cemetery, that ended because it got dark. And it became hand-to-hand combat.
And you had troops from, again, 2nd Corps arriving from Carroll's brigades, which included the 7th West Virginia.
Which is from Morgantown.
Yeah, which was formed in Morgantown. they make a bayonet charge over the hill and chase the Confederates clear back into their lines, and then have to come back because now they're in trouble because now they're getting shot at by other Confederates and they withdraw. So it was a back and forth seesaw.
On that flank too, you have those regiments, and if you go in Confederate history books, it's the Stonewall Brigade, it's the Louisiana Tigers. They have these names for reasons.
They're tough.
Like Hood's Brigade, we know them. It's Hood. We know it's Texas. Those Texas boys are tough.
Arkansas.
Yeah, Arkansas. We know the Iron Brigade, the Irish Brigade.
The Orphan Brigade.
Yeah, they like to fight.
Yeah. And then the fighting goes around into Culp's Hill. And that's where you have General Greene. He's the oldest general in the Army of the Potomac. And they call him, his troops call him Papa Greene as a nickname. Or Pappy Greene, depending on where he was at.
And then you'd had Doubleday over there, too.
Yeah.
And you had the Iron Brigade from the first day in the Buck Hills. They were all over there forming a line. And then you had Maryland.
And what's cool is, if anybody goes visit Gettysburg, you can actually go into the trenches at Culp's Hill now. They got it cut back where you can actually go where the Union troops actually built the rock walls and the fences to hide behind.
I remember what I did there last year.
Yeah.
I went in full uniform down there.
But what's sad about...
I was going to look at the rocks, because there's, where the Confederates hit, you can see the bullet marks off those rocks. And the Confederates said when coming up Culp's Hill, they were like hiding behind these boulders in it. And, there's markings where they wrote in that. But these people get out of their car, and I'm in full uniform, and I'm like, yeah, I got to do it. I just start running up the hill, doing a rebel yell. These people got back in the car and left, and I'm like, it's like a kid and their family. I'm like, I felt like a monster, but it was worth it. They got the full experience.
Yeah.
Because I looked, I had I was sweaty and all that, and with the beer, full uniform, and I'm like, yeah, I got to do it.
But I think Culp's Hill's kind of overlooked because everybody wants to go to Little Round Top.
Yeah, Little Round Top, Pickett's Charge, all that. You forget
about Culp's Hill.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Definitely go to some of the less popular places because just as important action took place there. And
Evergreen Cemetery. There's so much fighting right there. It's overlooked. Like you're going into Gettysburg on the Baltimore Pike, and you're like, what's this?
But what's neat about the Evergreen Cemetery is if you go in there, you can see battle damage on some of the tombstones.
Yeah.
Some have been hit by cannonballs or Parrot's rifle shells, and they're tore apart. You think, that tombstone does not know. It's actually battle damage from the battle itself.
That's the same way in Fredericksburg. You go and see it at Fredericksburg, too. There's like a headstone that has it just, you'd see it looks like that.
So, with jumping back to the other side where the Little Round Top is you have some of the Confederates who get into the borders down there, and there's Confederate snipers who are picking off some of the Union commanders, and there's stories like 2 or 3 in a row. Just whoever's next in command shot, the next one in.
Yeah, it wasn't like the Revolutionary War. There was honor in it, and there were some things. Some generals like, well, that's no honor of shooting a commander. Revolutionary War, there's more thing of we don't shoot officers.
Yeah.
And during the Civil War, we're realizing you shoot an officer, things start spiraling out of control a bit more.
Increase your chances of doing it.
Yes, by a lot.
A lot of... I always like to bring this up about Little Round Top, and people don't know this. There's where Vincent actually fell is a little confusing, and I like to tell people this too when they go. There's a tombstone that says General Vincent was here.
With the 5th Corps marker.
With the 5th Corps marker. He's actually killed up on a boulder, and the one where it says General Vincent fell here on July 2nd, 1860, that's where he actually fell. Where the little marker is at with the little 5th Corps emblem, that's where he was taken under fire. And that's where the surgeons looked at him. And
don't forget, Governor Warren.
Oh, Governor K. Warren, yes. Very important
role
for the second day. Governor K. Warren is not a Corps commander. He's actually the chief engineer, Army of the Potomac. And Governor K. Warren will later take command of the 5th Corps after the Battle of Gettysburg. He's given Corps command. But he's an engineer. And he gets up there, and he's flabbergasted because the only thing he finds up there is one artillery company.
And Signal Corps.
And a Signal Corps. The most
important part that's the artillery company that Longstreet was hiding from.
Yeah.
Because if you go to Little Round Top, you can see the battlefield. You can see all of Seminary Ridge.
That's not Weed's battery. I thought it was Weed. Weed's a division commander.
He died, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. While you're thinking, that's why the Confederates wanted to get up there, but then they can get artillery up there. They're firing down the entire length of the Union Army.
But if they got guns up there, we need buckets to catch the lead.
And that's why it was so important to take Little Round Top. And that's why the Confederates keep coming up. They try to flank it, then they think, okay, let's just try and go around them. They're just moving around farther and farther, and they think they're going to try and get around the Union position. But as was mentioned, whenever the Union comes again, put Chamberlain there, it's basically like the Union position is basically like a used staple.
Yeah, just keeps...
It loops around on both ends.
Hazard's battery.
Yeah. He died too.
Yeah, give you some time to think.
Yeah. I knew it would come to me, but
Hazard's battery. There's so many people.
What's cool about Vincent, and people don't realize this, Vincent is not even supposed to be there. Vincent's actually marching toward the center of the line. His brigade was ordered to where the 1st Minnesota was at.
And Warren saw him be like, hey,
he actually was on his horse and grabbed him and pulled him out and said, you're coming, your brigade's coming with me. He didn't ask General Barnes' permission. He didn't ask General Meade's permission. He just grabbed him.
He's like, they're coming.
Yeah.
There's nothing up here to stop them.
And in Vincent's credit, Vincent could have said, who are you? I don't have to listen to you. Because you're not my brigade. You're not my division commander.
To be honest,
you're my corps commander.
But then you just be like, look.
Yeah, look.
Because an artillery battery is not stopping infantry that long.
Vincent is a go-getter general, as I call him. He's going to take the initiative by himself. He's not going to wait for chain of command. He does it. And he's the reason why the Union hold Little Round Top, is because of Vincent's quick thinking on his feet.
Now, Chamberlain did stop it, but Vincent, if it wasn't for Vincent, Chamberlain wouldn't have been on
remember,
Round
here's
Top.
another guy, not a West Point graduate. He's
Professor.
a Harvard graduate. Vincent went to Harvard. And Chamberlain's not a West Point. He went to Bowdoin College in Maine. And here you have two guys who have no military experience being given the flank of the Union Army.
The flank.
Yeah.
If they failed, the whole thing would have failed.
Chamberlain taught rhetoric.
Yeah.
So, but I actually want to talk about him. So they're basically, Union Army is basically facing west. Mm-hmm. Chamberlain is wrapped around Little Round Top in the back, facing east, as kind of as guard. And you have the Confederates. They hear the Confederate yell, and everyone's getting. This is an all-day battle that's going all afternoon. It's by the time they finally get started, but they're starting to run low on ammunition. And so this is where Chamberlain has his famous fixed bayonets. Let's attack. And I think it's dramatized. That's a word. It's played up a little bit more of look at the brilliance of what Chamberlain did. Pretty much any military commander would probably come to the same conclusion. You don't have ammunition.
You can't retreat.
You can't retreat. If you fail, then the whole Union Army is run over. They're sending messages over the hill. Hey, do you have supplies? Do you have supplies? They're coming back. No, we're fighting our own battle on the front side of.
Which back then you can get bullets off the ammo off the dead.
Yeah.
It'll work for any gun back then, which was the beauty of it. Which I think, once again, this is a reenactment standpoint. When you see people charge at you, you kind of freeze in fear.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where oh, you're actually charging. We've been in that scenario of we're not standing still, and we know we're not going to get hurt. Imagine what they're coming up the hill and they see a line of blue coming down there, You just break and run. There's no, especially when they're coming downhill.
It's funny because you see in the movie they make it drawn out. Like Chamberlain arrives, he has time to set up his regiment. Chamberlain gets the Little Round Top. He only has 30 minutes before the rebels are coming up the hill. He's not sitting there going, "Oh, Tom, I want you to do this," or "I want the colors here."
Little war council in the back.
Yeah, he doesn't do that. He sends Company B off. Company B goes off to the extreme where the sharpshooters were, and Company B starts working its way downhill because he doesn't know that the rebels are there. He doesn't know what's in front of him, so he needs to know. So he sends out Company B as skirmishers. Company B gets stuck in behind Confederate lines. Company B 20th Maine is cut off. Chamberlain thinks, "Oh no, I just lost Company B. They're gone. They've been captured or killed." And you see in the movie when the rebels are charging uphill, and you see these puffs of smoke coming from the background. That's Company B because Company B somehow ended up on the Confederate flank. So you have the 20th Maine and Company B's over here. It's almost like an L. Company B eventually works its way back and makes it time for the bayonet charge. But Company B is stuck out there going, "Uh-oh, we're in trouble." You know,
and being surrounded sucks.
yeah,
Even in reenacting, it sucks.
because you don't know, because they would take prisoners during the Civil War, but in the heat of battle, depending on what regiment you were facing, they may have not taken you
Yeah,
prisoners.
if that was the Iron Brigade,
that you would have been a prisoner.
you're not. My opinion, I know how you're going. You're going to fight to the last minute. The 20th Maine, no offense to them, I'm going to see you guys get in the back of your prisoners. But the Iron Brigade or the Irish Brigade, I know what your rep is. You're going to fight to that last man. I saw what you did at Bloody Lane. I heard the story. I saw what the Iron Brigade did the first day. I know your stories. Yeah, no, you're going to fight to the last man. I know how it's going to go.
And with the 20th Maine, as Roger mentioned earlier, there was another Maine regiment who they thought they had signed up to fight with whatever. They had signed to put up, or whatever regiment they signed to fight longer. And so they kind of said, we're not going to fight. They were almost going to be court-martialed. They got put with the 20th Maine of, hey, can you do something with them? Take a
shoot them,
watch,
yeah,
shoot them, whatever. Yeah, that was the line, But Chamberlain's like, Maine boys. So he gives them the
because that you could go back to your state. Why'd you kill your own men for no reason?
And he gives him a speech of, hey, you know what we're going to fight against. This could be a big battle, whatever. And he gets all but 6 of them to join. And so he gets
3 more in the battle to join.
Yeah. Which at that point, if you're being hauled to battle, you're sitting there, you're getting shot at, you might as well shoot back. In my opinion, I don't really like that scene in the movie. They're just sitting back there having a little chill bonfire
That would have happened.
thing.
They'd have been placed under guard with the provost marshal.
Probably a little bit further back too, because they're not going to be right behind the line. Because if I'm that close, I'm gonna be I'm getting shot at. I'm running or I'm fighting.
The Chamberlain's pick his bayonet charge. Okay, they have no ammunition. They have to do something. Hand-to-hand combat. It's the only thing you got to do. Yes, it does save the army. So it was a great military tactic, but it wasn't as innovative and unique as it's often made out.
And you got to realize too, the Confederates coming up the hill are just as exhausted as the 20th Maine. The 15th Alabama,
coming up that hill.
Alabama.
If you look at the hill.
Well, not just that. The Alabama regiment had sent their canteens back to get refilled. And they thought, okay, we got time. We're going to refill our canteens here at Plum Run. The only problem is, though, by the time the canteens get back, the regiment had already moved. So now, the Alabama troops are going into battle without their canteens in 100-degree weather, wearing a wool uniform, running up a 3% grade.
And which a lot of people think when they go to Little Round Top, they're like, oh, 20th Maine is in front of it. No, he's way back there. That monument's way back there. Which sounds a little bit clearer to get to because they've redone it, but it's way back there. When I went to Little Round Top, I'm like, oh, 20th Maine's on the front. No. You can actually you can miss that monument without even knowing it's there.
Yeah. And I got 20th Maine gets all the credit, but we got to remember the Pennsylvania regiment off on his flank,
83rd,
the 83rd, and then the 44th. All those regiments in Vince's brigade suffered almost 35 to 50% casualties in a matter of a couple hours. I don't think it's always Chamberlain, 20th Maine.
And
like you said earlier, there's nothing spectacular about his bayonet charge. It's basic military tactics, and he probably learned that from the first colonel, Adelbert Ames. It was not something that he might have thought of. Hey, I'm going to bayonet charge. He probably learned that from Adelbert Ames.
He's playing it by the book.
He's playing it by the book. Yeah.
Which is, once again, I'm out of ammo. Can't retreat. Just charge. And once again, you don't even need a bayonet to hit somebody with a musket.
And you got to give it to Captain Ellis Spears.
Yeah.
Who's Commander of Company A, 20th Maine. And that scene where he goes, "You mean charge?" Well, that I don't like that scene in the movie because Ellis Spears would have known that I'm out of ammunition. We can't run away. Our only option is to go.
Everyone knows they're coming.
Yeah. They know that bayonet charge.
And you don't even have to use your bayonet with a musket because
it becomes a very good club.
It is what is it, 9-pound club?
9.5 pound.
And including, I have been hit with the 9-point that club.
And we got to remember too, during the Civil War, only 3% of battlefield injuries were caused by a bayonet. They didn't like to use the bayonet, and we talked about.
They were used more. There's actually, if you go to Sharpsburg, there's a bayonet bent like a hook. They would hook them up. They would catch them on melt them a little bit where they can bend them. Hook them underneath the gun to drag the dead.
Yeah, the bayonet was not used like we think of these grandiose bayonet charges.
Candle holder.
We've used them for the opening of cans. We've used them to
Dry my gun.
dry your gun.
Clean it like I just...
Yeah. The bayonet, they didn't like to use the bayonet. There's this misconception that they use the bayonet all the time.
No.
When there was a religious movement in the 1850s. These guys would have known the Bible. They would have been very religious. If you shoot a company of men and all the white smoke and the cloud of battle, you don't know if it was my bullet or Tyler's bullet that killed somebody. But when you stab somebody with a bayonet, you have to look them in the face. And they did not like that at all.
Now, when pickets charge, they're going to fix bayonet.
Yeah, because they knew it was going to be
They know it's going to be hand-to-hand.
But as far as using the bayonet in battle, it's very rarely used.
It's an annoying little piece of thing.
It makes a lot of noise when you're walking when you hit your tin cup. It's not.
When Jackson did the flank march at Chancellorsville, what he said, how'd he do it? No bayonets on the guns? Or
yeah, no bayonets, no... Oh, he wanted their bayonets fixed because he didn't want the clanging of the cups to give their position away.
And that can give the position away very, very
Because if you're quiet and you hear us moving,
you'll
hear that bayonet hitting that tin cup. So yeah, bayonets were not used.
Or canteen. Because we have it by our canteen most of the time.
It was actually in the movie, one of the Lord of the Rings, the movie Two Towers, Christopher Lee, whenever...
being stabbed.
Yeah, he gets... Saruman, he gets stabbed in the back whenever he fought by Wormtongue.
Yeah. He goes and he's like... Sorry, he goes and he's like, you don't scream when you get stabbed. It's more like just air coming out of you. Which Christopher Lee is just, not to get off topic, that man is like...
He's like the Stephen Lang for us in Gettysburg.
Yeah, he's a god.
But whenever the director said, no, you gotta do it, he's like, no, have you ever
been stabbed?
No, it's, have you ever stabbed a person in the back and hurt it? The guy says, no. He goes, well, because Christopher Lee was in the military.
Yeah, he hunted Nazis during World War II.
So, yeah. So
it's
that man's scary.
Even World War I, they didn't like to use their bayonets. No. I mean, they were trained to use it. I mean,
and they got outlawed.
Yeah, well, our bayonet got outlawed.
But our bayonet got outlawed.
Only the Russians didn't. But anyway,
ours did.
They trained with the bayonet, and you see it in God's Generals when Jackson says, "Train with the bayonet, Professor White. We'll keep our freedom."
Give them the bayonet. Show them the bayonet.
Jackson did believe in the bayonet. There were other corps commanders and other generals in the Civil War that thought the bayonet was just too brutal, and they weren't ready to use it very much.
Jackson was out the win. So.
Jackson was from a different time. I'm convinced Jackson should have been in the Crusades. He was born at the wrong time.
He probably read the Crusades.
Probably. He did at West Point.
He was military history there, yeah.
Remember, I love the scene in God's General back to Jackson when he says, read the Bible. It's the best battle report ever. That certainly is.
Which, once again, I'm not using a bayonet because you got to thrust, develop, guard. That's, when you thrust that gun, you can just smack it out of the way. I prefer swinging it, which including...
That's where that Perrier to the right, Perrier to the left comes
I don't know if you've been hit with the musket before.
I have.
I got a concussion from the musket.
You did get a concussion.
But dropping and cracking me in the skull. It does not feel good.
Yeah, remember, our rifles have a metal butt plate or a brass butt plate, so when you hit something, it's like hitting them with a...
I didn't get hit with the butt plate. I got hit with just the wood, the stock, and it just went thump.
It knocked him out pretty good.
Yeah, so just swinging it full force, you ain't gonna mess someone's day up. Mm-hmm. Now he's got it. There we go. So, I'm not going to use the bayonet. I'm going to take this thing and swinging it. Because, once again, you can just...
you're like that. You just swing it and miss and throw your rifle clear into the crowd. That'd be
my luck. Yeah. Well, I mean, back then, too, my luck. Yeah. I'd swing it and miss. There it goes.
Turtle, you got to realize something.
There's Lee on horseback.
Yeah, smacking the horse. You got to remember something. Turtle is, if you ever come to our reenactment and you meet us, Turtle's our entertainment value in the 31st Virginia. He really is. But we're a good group of guys. I mean, we stick together like the real regiment would have done.
It's a family. We
are a family.
All right, let's move on to the third day, July 3rd. You had Pickett's Charge.
Well, there was more fighting than pickets on the 3rd.
There was more, yes. That's
more Culp's Hill, Yeah,
it's funny that after Little Round Top, the Chamberlain goes over and gets moves up to Big Round Top a little bit, and then in the morning they move him. He's like, "Oh, we moved to the safest part of the battlefield."
That happened
Right,
with a lot of
right.
regiments. The
Irish
140th
Brigade.
moved.
Irish Brigade.
Basically, the whole Second Corps.
Yeah, they're like, you guys are.
All the regiments that were shot up on July 2nd, Meade did believe that was the safest part. Now, later in the day, he didn't attack. Now, later that day, Meade does meet with Hancock and Gibbon. And he tells General Gibbon, he says, "You better be prepared because I think Lee's action is going to come to your front." And that was the center. And Gibbon did prepare the center. Well, Gibbon was another good general.
Yeah, he was.
John Gibbon. And so they move them. Like you said, they moved the 20th Maine off the Big Round Top. Now, we don't know if Chamberlain actually met with General Hancock. And when they talk about what do the books tell you to do.
Yeah, it's like one of those.
It's one of them.
You got to give him
Hollywood
screen time.
Yeah. Now, Hancock was on his course when he did get hit. Now, that is fact. He did get hit.
And where they say he got hit is apparently not where he got hit. Apparently, it's like he went to the reunion and he's like, "I got hit here."
Not over there.
Yeah. And then, sadly, they never was able to.
But
he passed.
But the cool thing about Pickett's charge is, you see it in the movie when he says, "We're going to do what Napoleon would do, a foot on fire," as Napoleon would call it. And he did do that tactic at Waterloo, and it didn't work. So Wiley thought it would work at Gettysburg. I have no idea. I think Pickett's charge is Lee's desperation for a win.
I think that's absolutely.
I think that's what it is, and I think he believes that the Army of Northern Virginia is still invincible. And if I order them to take that ridge, they're going to take the ridge.
So here's the thing I actually came up with by reading this. And then this involves Pickett's charge. Pickett's division came in on the 2nd. Some of them did.
In the night.
Well, some came in the day, too.
Yeah.
Why not use them at Little Round Top? There was, the 24th Virginia, Kemper's Brigade, all that? That was how many Virginians right there? What if we'd have sent them? What if they'd have went?
Well, you got to remember, they're marching from Chambersburg. They were probably exhausted.
So was everybody else, though, too.
But yeah, the important thing is that Pickett missed the battle he thought he was going to miss the battle completely.
He thought he was going to miss the war. He thought the war was going to be over time he got there.
Yeah. And so he gets there, and so he was thrilled that he gets to lead this charge.
Yeah.
And again, it's invincibility.
And we got to look at...
We're Virginia.
Yeah.
We will take that hill.
Yeah, and you got to look at the psyche of General Pickett. Pickett is an old-school cavalier. He believes in honor, duty, and courage. The West Point Code, And what's cool about Pickett, if you look at his uniform, he's wearing the black cuffs and everything. And what's cool about Pickett, if you look at his sash, the sword sash he wears, that's actually his dragoon sash. So he's going to treat his infantry like cavalry. So they move fast, they move hard, and they hit hard.
We've done that before.
We've done that before.
Foot Cavalry.
Yeah.
Shenandoah Valley, 1862.
But there's a scene in the uncut version of Gettysburg, and I always tell people to go to the uncut version because you see a lot more Pickett and what he's thinking. He goes to Longstreet and says, "Who do I complain to that my boys were put in the rear of the column?" And Longstreet said, "We don't have time to argue about that. I need your boys in Gettysburg tonight or tomorrow morning." Pickett was thrilled to be given the opportunity to lead the charge.
And even with that, he's like, "Why am I in the rear?" It's like, well, if we have to turn around and retreat,
you're in the front. Yeah, so that's how he said, "George, you'll be in the front."
I always just think, like I said earlier, if he was a little bit early, if he was in maybe mid-column and all that Confederate Army would have came up,
and I think there was a mutual respect between General Pickett and General Longstreet.
Oh, they're all friends.
They were old friends. But I think there's this, he's my colleague, but he's also my brother in arms.
And he's my
He's probably the best division commander I have in
Pickett. Especially after Jackson. It was Longstreet and Jackson. Longstreet was a bit more cautious.
Jackson was not cautious, and that's why they worked well together.
Yeah.
Pickett is a go-getter. You hear me use the word go-getter. These guys, some of them were motivated, some of them weren't. Some of them you had to kick like a mule to get them to move. Where Pickett was like, "I'm going in." So Longstreet, they showed in the movie Gettysburg, where Pickett says, "I'm also giving you J.J. Pettigrew and Isaac Trimble." And he says,
a little bit, and Lane.
And Lane, he says, "Well, those are part of A.P. Hill's division. Shouldn't A.P. Hill lead the charge?" And it kind of infuriates Lee a little bit, like hurts Lee, because Longstreet is the only general that Lee can trust at this point to do what he's told to do. Because he can't trust Ewell and he can't trust A.P. Hill because they're new to Corps Command. So I think Longstreet was his fallback, his main guy. Of course, he did have Stewart's cavalry show up on the night of the 2nd, so now he has the cavalry with him.
After he made Stewart look like a...
Well, Stewart even offered to resign.
Yeah.
He's like,
and that's why I always tell people.
Yeah, which I think the plan was there. Stewart was supposed to come behind him?
Well, that's why I was telling you. I was just going to bring this up. If you get a chance to go to Gettysburg, go and visit East Cavalry Battlefield.
I don't know where that is.
I'll take you there next time we go.
All right, we're packing our bags.
Yeah. There's some big names there. Custer's there. Jeb Stuart, Wade Hampton, Wesley Merritt.
Which
Alfred Pleasington.
We outnumbered that cavalry.
Yeah.
And Stewart just like...
and Pegram's horse battery was
there.
So, I always tell people to go and visit that part of the battlefield, too. People don't even remember that part of the battlefield.
It's one of those unknown names of, people don't remember.
But there was men killed there as well. And the Michigan Brigade makes this grandiose cavalry charge and pushes Stewart off the field. Custer is brand new to brigadier general. He's only been a brigadier general for 3 days, given a brigade of cavalry. So he's new to the brigade command, but yet he leads the Michigan Brigade by himself. His Wolverines, as he called them. Go Michigan. Oh, yeah.
You could see his hair coming a mile away, though.
Yeah, I always like to tell people, go visit parts of the battlefield that people forget about, because their stories are there, too.
And that's the other thing, one, doing your research, 2, getting a tour, 3, getting away because it's not going to be as crowded, and you can really appreciate what happened there in the silence, too. But there's something about being on the battlefield when it's quiet.
Mm-hmm. When they first open, it's nice, too, in the day.
Yeah, early morning.
Yeah, because you can enjoy it. As soon as it's dusk, hear the birds, and sometimes hear distant artillery fire from, spirits and that, and just be like, when the little Round Top opened, people didn't know about it as much, because it was really kind of just a surprise. Of hey, it's open, and people are taking these beautiful pictures, and it's like, wow.
I always tell people that, they call our Antietam the artillery hell. But I give it to Gettysburg more. You got to remember, the Confederates bring 270 guns of artillery on the field, and the Union bring 300 guns of artillery onto the field. And all these guns are engaged. There's not an artillery unit that was not engaged at some point in the battle.
That's the thing. Before Pickett's charge, the Confederates fire on the Union lines for, 90 minutes?
90 minutes.
And there are 147 Confederate cannon that are firing. There's people so Gettysburg goes, I'm not familiar with the geography, roughly middle of the state of Pennsylvania, a little bit towards the south, near the Maryland border. In Pittsburgh in the west, and Philadelphia in the east, they can hear it.
Yeah.
I guarantee Harrisonburg could hear it.
They heard it in Pittsburgh.
It's a 3-hour drive from Pittsburgh to Gettysburg. So you're talking...
So what they call an acoustic shadow.
150 miles. And you're hearing the cannon. So you can imagine how loud it is in Gettysburg.
It had to be deafening.
And you got to remember, E. Porter Alexander is commander of the Confederate artillery. And he meets with Longstreet, and they show it in the movie. He said, Longstreet, I want you to fire all your long-range ordnance, but we've got to support the infantry. Now, E. Porter Alexander, he's only 20-some years old. He's like 26, 27 at the time.
Yeah.
So he's given a big responsibility. He commands all 140-some cannons on that area of the field. And he sees Union artillery withdrawing, thinking that the Union are starting to fall back. No, the Union is taking artillery units out of line and bringing fresh unit guns up. Meade is constantly rotating his guns. And Cushing's battery is one of them.
Because that's why we started overshooting a little bit. Because they're like, we're going to hit the ones that retreat.
Yeah.
From when we come up, they're going to be waiting for us. And no, that wasn't the case.
No.
We also like to overshoot.
Yeah, that's... But, so that's when Longstreet has really moved. I believe Longstreet really did not give the order to command. I think he just nodded because he knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, it was a disaster.
Longstreet even says in the movie that 15,000 men in May can take that ridge. We saw it at Fredericksburg the year before, and the Union attacked with twice the number. It couldn't take a stone wall. What makes you think we're going to take a stone wall?
And so Longstreet knew this is a disaster. Lee is desperate. He has to do something.
Pickett knew it was a disaster at the end. Yeah. But he went in the movie it shows, he went in with pride. He went in with pride.
He had confidence and this is what all the Confederate soldiers felt. Lee gave us this order.
Yeah. It's going to work. Lee gave us
it's because it's from Lee. And so they're marching to their deaths where Longstreet's, this is no way that this is going to work. And they're thinking, we got this made.
We know
we're going to win the war.
And a lot of them knew they weren't making it. But you see it when it shows them all like just sitting there. And
some of them reading letters.
Yeah.
Some of them praying.
Just sitting there.
I think the saddest part of the movie Gettysburg, and I believe this did happen, is when Lee said, it's all my fault, and Pickett comes walking up.
I have no division.
Yeah, and we'll get to that at the end. They were so decimated. And Lee says, hey, General Pickett, you have to look to your division. And Pickett says, I have no division. They were so decimated. But they were marching over. So after the cannon fire,
we came out.
Confederates step out of the woods and they march a mile.
What General Hancock in his official report said, it looked like a military parade. He said the Confederates come out, they dressed their lines, they unfurled their colors, they fixed bayonets, they stayed in perfect formation,
which is very hard to do. I imagine under fire.
And Hancock said he couldn't order to give the command to fire because he thought it would be not prudent to spoil such a valiant parade of military arms, as he put it. Eventually, though, he had to give the command to fire. I mean, they're coming at you. But what's amazing about the Confederates in that charge, it starts at 3 p.m. By 3:45, it's over. So it takes them 45 minutes to get to that Union line, get decimated, and fall back in to the Confederate line.
It's like we were taking artillery fire in the tree line, then we come out, take it all the way to Emmitsburg Road, then we hit the short range, and then we're hitting musket fire as soon as we hit the road, and just keep going. And we did break the line.
Yeah.
But once again, how that was they could just go right back.
And what's crazy...
not Armistead, 11 Mississippi broke too on the left.
Armistead, he leading from the front, like you mentioned before, to give his men some courage and some motivation. He takes his hat off, puts it on top of his sword. He's marching with his hat on top, so because they're going up and down these little ridges and these little hills, going over fences and things like that. The one point in the movie, the sword pokes through the hat, it falls down. He picks it up, puts it back on top, and he's saying, "Follow me, boys."
I kind of like Crowder.
Was it Garnett or Garnett?
Garnett. He heard kicked by a sword.
Well, they never did find his body.
No. Well, yeah. And they show the horse coming right now.
The horse wouldn't survive.
No. So what they're doing is after they do the short range with the cannon, they go to what's called canister, which is basically a giant shotgun.
And they were doing double cannons.
Yeah, they were loading doubles.
Maybe you can do triple at some point.
They could, but they were always in trouble of a cannon burst.
Yeah. And that it shows in Gauze and Generals what that will do.
And what happens is Garnett rides, because he has an injured leg. Something happened, a blow up between him and Jackson. He was
court-martialed during the Valley campaign.
And so he's doing this for his pride of, I have to lead this. And you see Armistead saying, no, you can't do this.
And he's like,
it's
can't
suicide.
Walk. I'm going to ride.
And so he's riding this horse. He's a target because everyone else is walking. He gets up close to the canister fire on him, and they show the horse riding out of the smoke. As my chemistry teacher told us in high school, they were all sitting in a pile of ground beef on the ground.
Oh, yeah. There's been.
So they were finding it, obviously, because it's much.
Yeah, double canister that close, you're not walking, and you're not seeing something.
There's one unit that is talked about, and that's the 26th North Carolina.
Those boys were fought on the first day.
Fought on the second day.
And the third day.
They were on 3-day
action. What were they, 90% casualties?
93%.
93% casualties. 11 Mississippi was wiped out in the
only 82 men survived in that regiment.
Yeah.
Out of 386, I think only 82 came back.
Of North Carolina or 11th?
The 11th. The 26th suffered 93%.
Which one got wiped out?
That was the 26th.
Okay.
When the 26th got to the wall, the flag bearer and the man beside him, the Union soldiers took those guys prisoners, and that regiment ceased to exist.
Yeah, you see that in the movie as well.
Yeah, once we lose your flag, we call it a day. Really. And the crazy thing about that artillery barrage back and forth, there was cannonballs, I think there was like 2, where they managed to spike the other cannon. Like, the cannonball landed in the whole, like, the barrel of the other cannon. It's like,
It's like a
How'd they
Robin
do
Hood.
it?
Yeah, and the cannons. I think it was a Cincinnati, Connecticut battery.
Yeah.
And it's on a museum up there.
You see the barrel still.
Yeah, and it's spiked with a cannonball. And I think on the battlefield they have a replica of it spiked. And it's just like, that's a 1 in a million shot right there.
Well, one Union soldier that was at the wall at the angle, he was in a Pennsylvania regiment. He said the artillery barrage was so intense that he thought he could take his hat off, stick his hat in the air, and catch a cannonball.
Yeah, don't try to do that.
Don't try to do that. I wouldn't suggest it.
You ever watch a Patriot that tells you why? Yeah. You just see that thing rolling
One
across
Union
the
soldier
field.
in the Irish Brigade said they were afraid to stick their head up to even look at the charge because they were afraid they were going to get hit from shrapnel from these artillery rounds coming in at them.
Imagine what Armistead's hat looked like.
Well, Armistead's interesting. He arrives right at the angle, and there's a monument that says
Where he
Armistead fell. He didn't fall right
So
there.
it's Lou Armistead.
Yeah.
And he, as we mentioned before, best friends with Hancock.
Yeah. He arrives at Alonzo Cushing's battery. Alonzo Cushing commands a U.S. artillery regiment. Alonzo Cushing was the youngest Union officer killed, and he's also the youngest to win the Medal of Honor at Gettysburg. He stays with his gun crew even until his battery is wrecked. He's actually wounded in the groin, and the final shot that kills him hits him in the mouth and kills him. But when you hear in the movie, you see Armistead going rally to the colors, and he's leaning on that cannon. That's Cushing's batteries. He's hit there. He falls there. He's actually where the monument is where the Union officers carried Armistead over to.
Because officers, they would have treated a little bit more politely than, like, if me or him was wounded in that charge, they would leave us dying dead when we were. If it was an officer, they would have took us.
Yeah.
And supposedly, Armistead was a Freemason.
Yeah.
And the person that grabbed him was a Freemason.
And Armistead gave him the secret code word that the Mason's in trouble. The Union officer heard it, came off his horse, and grabbed Armistead and held Armistead. And that's when Armistead finally says, and they use Thomas Chamberlain for that in the movie, which it wasn't Thomas Chamberlain.
And there's a monument for
At
the
Gettysburg
Mason monument.
It's at the National Military Cemetery. He holds Armistead, and he says, I need to see General Hancock. And that's when he says, no, General Hancock's been wounded as well. The general's down. They're only 100 yards from each other and don't even know it.
Because Hancock came and brought the Ohio boys up the flank.
Yeah. And the Vermont troops.
Yeah.
Armistead, what hurts Hancock is not a bullet. Everybody thinks he's hit by a bullet. You see it in the movie, you do think it's a bullet. What actually hits him is a pommel from his saddle. The bullet hits the saddle that he's riding, the McClellan saddle, has a brass pommel, like a hook, where you hook your extra pistol holsters. That's what goes into his hip. It's not the bullet. It's the brass and part of the bullet. It's Hancock.
But it's like Chamberlain. He
got
hit
the
sword.
yeah.
The sword gets hit.
Yeah. Hancock never really recovered from his dying day. The wound suffers and festers for the rest of his life. Matter of fact, during the Overland campaign in '64, he's not even on a horse. He's riding in an ambulance because it's too painful for him to even get on a horse to direct the second better. Yeah.
Bumpy.
And no shocks whatsoever. Armistead is carried to the Culp Farm, and Hancock is carried to a Union hospital about where the visitor center is now. There was a federal hospital there they took Hancock to, and Armistead ends up at the Culp's Farm. Armistead dies a couple days later from, guess what? Same thing kills Jackson. Pneumonia. He gets pneumonia and dies. No, he died of pneumonia a couple days later. But they showed in the movie him giving the Bible to Longstreet to give to.
They actually didn't know what it was.
Yeah,
it was
his Bible. That Bible is now on display at the hometown where Hancock is from.
And that was something that Armistead, the last time that he sees Hancock in California before they leave for the war, he said, if I ever attack you, may God strike me dead. And so Armistead's thinking this the whole time, that he knows he's going to be parts of that Hancock's up there. And actually, he asked, hey, Hancock's over there. Is there a way we can go and meet, earlier in the battle?
Just
he knows.
Send over white flag. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
Because there was still an honor among the officers.
And he hands a package. They don't know what they don't actually show what it is, and it's just wrapped up. But it gets sent to Hancock's wife.
Apparently, it has a message written to Elmira saying how sorry he was that he did fight.
Which he says in the movie.
Yeah.
He says it there. He's like, how sorry I am before he.
Yeah. Armistead is an interesting character. Armistead's actually kicked out of West Point. He's not a graduate of West Point. He gets kicked out because he stabbed another cadet with a fork. Matter of fact, the other cadet he stabbed was Gilbert Early. He was also a Confederate general.
So I bet those two got along.
Yeah, they got along great. So you see these friendships on no matter what the uniform they're wearing, and they show it in Gods and Generals with the enlisted men when they're sharing coffee and tobacco in the middle of the Rapidan River. You may be my enemy 1 minute, but you're also an American.
Yeah, there's so much. And what was it? Marylanders.
Marylanders did it.
On Culp's Hill, they did. And you're like, you know who you're shooting at?
We're Marylanders.
It's like, yeah, I know.
There's accounts of troops.
And they just grabbed them and like pulled them up there and be like,
we did it with the 140th one year, where we did a skit for the public to show that these guys were not brutal to each other, and they would get out in the middle of the battlefield and share newspapers or tobacco or say, "Where are you from? Where are you from?" You know,
I've done a skit where one was my uncle.
Yeah, it's
and I turned around and shot him.
I'm not shocked.
Johnny Red,
Yeah. And remember that saying that you hear him say in Gettysburg, "See you in hell, Johnny Red. See you in hell, Billy Yank." That was a common greeting. And we did not.
So that's what I do when I'm friends with a bunch of guys from Union Reenacting on my friend group. I'll say, "Thank you, Billy Yank." Or,
it's a camaraderie. Civil War soldiers. We're talking about lingo. And I'll show you how crazy it was. Civil War soldiers did not call the Civil War the Civil War. That was not a term they used. We call it the War of Northern Aggression. They call it the War of Southern Aggression. Or it's the War of States' Rights. Or what else did the Union call it? The War of
Succession.
The War of Succession. Civil War was not developed until after the Civil War, by about the time of World War I, when the reunions started happening. That's probably when that term Civil War came out.
Even though exactly what it was, we
shot each other.
Yeah.
I always like the, there's a way we were talking, not to go back to the way we were talking about the Civil War, why it started. I always tell people, look at the movie poster for Gettysburg, and it explains it the best way. Same land, same God, just different dreams. And I believe that's what these guys were fighting for at Gettysburg so hard, was the dreams. And Pickett's Charge is a prime example of that. It's one instant of all the dreams coming together and clashing at one place.
I'm proud of the boys that fought in that the war, both sides. Even though people give them crap nowadays, I defend them no matter what now.
They were Americans fighting for their rights.
Yeah. You know, we need to get on this podcast one day. We need to get Doug Wilson. That man can do a speech at the end, and I forget how he does it. He's like, "We are all American," and he explains it. He's like, "That's no Confederate. I'm no Union. That is an American. I'm an American." And he does it after every battle we did with the 140th, and that's probably the best speech I've heard.
I think so too. I think there's guys get into this hobby, and they get into it because they see us out there, and that looks fun. And it is fun. We have a great time.
Yeah.
But once they get into it and they put on that uniform, and they march out there in those formations, and you start falling in, not in love with the idea of the war, but the idea of protecting their legacy.
Like originally when I started, I loved history when I started it. I found a bullet, got me into history, loved to start doing it. A lot of guys just do it because it's camping with guns, and it's fun to do. I'm in it now, and I know why I'm in it and what I'm going to do. Like, we have a younger guy, his name's Ben, he's a little kid. Kid loves history. And he knows his thing is, I'm here to defend the history. And that's my plan for life.
And we've had little kids come up to us and ask us, "Are you real?" Yeah. That's a Philippine. And I always tell, parents to bring their kids to reenactments, because nothing against the school system, but they're not teaching it anymore.
And they don't teach it the best way if they do.
Plus, it's different between reading it in a book
and
actually touching one of our uniforms or
holding the musket.
And I think that's a way to get into history or get into anything, is to see it. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to read about a national park. It's another thing to actually see in looking pictures. It's another thing to see it in person. Because I talked on this podcast about going to Yosemite National Park with my dad, and with our family, we did a trip there too. But going out there and the pictures I take, I come back and it's like, this doesn't capture a tenth of what it looks like to be there, to have the feel of it, the smell of it, the grandeur of it, and the history of. And that's why history is boring if you see it, and you can hear it.
Because you go and read a book, it's just
pictures are worth 1,000 words. And a real life experience is so much more powerful than anything you can read in a book or even see on a movie.
Speaking of pictures, I did this one time. I have a book kind of like his, but it has like actual pictures of a battle. And it'll tell you where to stand.
To see that view?
Yeah, to see that view. And then you look at the actual picture of the bodies and you see where the field where what it looks like now.
Then and now.
Yeah, then and now.
I have a couple of those.
And it's you realize you're walking where
men died.
Where men fell and they died in agony, or they laid there wounded for days.
Or they left the dead for days before burial details. Like, you go to Bloody Lane, you see the pictures of Bloody Lane in Sharpsburg, and you just see it. And then know they just threw all the dead in there, too, as a burial trench, and you're like, wow.
It's
and now you just see it as, people just see it as, like, all this row of monuments and tons. I go and see it. That's a graveyard to me, how battlefields are.
Yeah. But that's my advice for anybody that goes to see Pickett's Charge, Antietam, South Mountain, wherever you go.
Think of what happened, and be respectful. Think of the men. That's their final moments.
And if you have a question, find a park ranger. That's what these guys are there for. And I give a shout out every time to the National Park Service Rangers, because not only can you get tours, you can get to the National Park Service building, and the rangers will go out and do a tour. And they'll do like a specific talk on a certain thing. So if you want to learn about Pickett's Charge, they might give a talk just on Armistead's brigade, or they might give a talk about Hancock, or they might give it. So these park rangers, ask them a question. If you see one on the battlefield and they're just cruising around, stop them and ask them a question. They will answer you.
Like
I was up there.
The first time I actually got to enjoy Gettysburg, there was this guy dressed up in like the Walmart uniform you buy for Halloween for the Civil War, and he's like explaining stuff, quoting the movie Gettysburg. I'm like, okay, he's just wanting to teach people. What got me is when he started naming regiments that wasn't in Pickett's Charge, because he named the Stonewall Brigade. I was in the Stonewall Brigade as a reenactor. I'm like, okay, that one hits a little bit home. I'm going to have to go, I said something like, that's not true. Last time I was up there, I was in my uniform, and people ask me questions. I'll answer them, and if I don't know, I'll be like, hey, go to the park ranger. But, like, I told them, they were like, asked where Barstow was. And I'm like, oh, he wasn't on this line at all. He's way down there. And I'm like, I told him how kind of like a beefy man he was and what he rode the battle. And
stuff like that. I believe that battle, and there's a lot of books wrote about the Battle of Gettysburg. And like you said, before you travel there, get a little bit of the background of what's going on there.
Plan out what you want to see and plan for it.
And make sure that you don't just try to learn about the generals.
Learn about the men that fought.
Learn about the men, the townspeople, all the other ins and outs of the battle, because it's interesting, and it puts that human perspective on it.
And this is kind of perspective, too. Like, they're going to say, oh, the generals fought. The generals really didn't fight. They led-ish.
They're the best babysitters ever.
Yeah, that's what they are. The men that fought are the captains, the lieutenants, the people below them, like we were saying earlier, like Vincent Starr. They took the initiative. Those are the men to learn about. Okay, we know the generals out there. We're always going to know the generals. Go learn the men that walked and died across Pickett's Charge, Bill Roundtop, all these guys.
I always like to tell this story about this drummer. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He was in the regiment, fought on the first day, 11th Corps. His drum is on display. And the drummers during the battle were ordered to drop their drums and act as stretcher bearers, medical corps. Well, he had his drum, and he was drumming, and a bullet hit him, and he fell over the drum. A Confederate picked up the drum, and the drum entered Confederate service. Well, the drum had the guy's name on the bottom of the drum, the Union drummer. After the war, the Confederate who captured the drum sent the drum back. And he was in Pennsylvania. I think he was in the 79th or 78th Pennsylvania, I forget.
It wasn't 78 because they were not.
Yeah, that was the 79th then. And I think I always forget the 78, 79 confused.
78 was my.
Yeah, they were out of Baltimore.
So, yeah.
But yeah, the 79th, he loses his drum. They find it and bring it back, and they send it home to his family after the war. And because there was that, hey, you may have been my enemy 1 minute, but now we're
yeah. And people nowadays, museums still hand over the flags of, be like, hey, this belongs to your state. And that happened in the 20s, the 30s, all that. This was captured at this battle. This belongs to you.
Yeah, it's an interesting place, Gettysburg. It really is.
One final thing on that is you can also see where the Gettysburg Address was given, which was November 19th, 1862, with Lincoln, which you mentioned before, the speech he wrote on the train ride up there. Seeing all the cemeteries is walking through there. It's a very solemn place. So, but gentlemen, thank you very much. This has been a wonderful total of 2 hours 40 minutes now that we've been going.
Yeah, we started talking about getting Civil War and get going.
It was a very informative conversation. I do greatly appreciate your time. You mentioned a few things just a little while ago about travel tips. Do you have another final one you want to add, or something to truly emphasize?
If you're going to Gettysburg, I emphasize shoes, an extra pair of shoes, and an extra pair of shoes. Because if it rains on that battlefield, the battlefield has a bad habit of absorbing the water and flooding a little bit in some of the areas.
Water.
Drink a lot. Drink a lot of water.
If you take your spouses, take them to Mr. G's for they don't get mad at you when you spend a lot of money.
Yeah. Keep them entertained.
Yes. Let them go shopping, and if you want to go do yours. Because we have friends that go up there, and it's like, all right, they do reenacting, the wife does reenacting, you go to the dress shop, I'm going to the men's shop. It's what it is.
Just like early 1860s.
Yeah. But yeah, just bring money, good time, and just enjoy it, and be respectful, and just remember what happened there. And don't sit on the monuments, don't stand on them, don't take stuff, and stay off the grass.
My travel tip is that in the past I've suggested doing your homework about a place that you're going to visit. Make sure you get as much out of it as you can. So, what do they offer? What can I see there? Things like that. And I mentioned before on this podcast, or for today's episode, that for the place of significance, for historical significance, go beyond just what you're going to see there, but learn what actually happened. Read the background, read the preliminary events that led up to it. When you get the full history and the events surrounding an event and what happened, you can truly understand and appreciate it more, which hopefully is what this podcast has, this episode has done with Gettysburg, of giving a more full, total perspective of what you're going to see, and not just here's what happened here, but here's why this happened, here's what led to this, and get a perspective of the people who were there, so you can truly appreciate what's going on. So, gentlemen, is there any contact information you want to give out about your group? You mentioned it a few times in passing.
No, I have Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want to reach out to me, learn about the Civil War.
Wait, you're the Liberty Rifles? Is that?
No, we're the 31st.
Okay.
If you're interested in joining or learning to become a reenactor, you can contact me at Tyler Turtle on Facebook, and we can get you hooked up. We'll put you through the ringer a little bit on the drills and that, but we mean no harm. We don't bite. I try to control that. And if you want to get into it now, just let me know.
And I'll stress this about the 31st Virginia reenacting group. We're very family-oriented. The wives do dress. It's not required, though.
It is family, yeah.
We are a very family unit, so your whole family can get into the hobby. We're not just a...
And we don't force it either. Be like, oh, your wife or child comes, they have to dress. You don't have to if you don't want to.
And the best way to join us, too, is just find us at a reenactment.
Yeah.
And talk to us there.
And we will throw you into it right then and there. We have done it to people in the past. We have extra uniforms all the time, extra muskets. We probably have total what?
I probably got enough supplies on
Yeah. We have probably 10 spare muskets, let alone, and we will just drill you that day, which is not really hard.
But get through the safety thing.
Safety stuff. And be like, let's go. I did to my little brother in June. I'm like, he's watched me since My mom adopted him, and I'm like, hey,
That explains why he is the way he is.
here we go, and he did wonderful out there.
Yeah. I mean, we want to get people involved in it. That's our main goal, was so that
It can be staying alive.
and it's one thing to go out there to these battlefields, but to live it, it's different.
It changes your mind when you go to a battlefield. When you do the stuff that they would have done, to a degree.
For me, my social media is at Matt with DVD on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Email is Matt, M-A-T-T, at dreamsbydesigntravel.com. Website for our company is dreamsbydesigntravel.com. Anyone who's working with a travel advisor, please keep working with them. If not, or if you have any other questions, feel free to contact me. I can get you in touch with Turtle and Roger and give you more information about how to contact them if necessary. All this information will be in the show description. So contact us if you want to book a trip or if you have any questions, whether it's going to be to Gettysburg or any of the other battlefields for the Civil War or any other national parks. We can help you with that. Please like, follow, subscribe, leave a review, tell a friend, especially like the journey. Pass along our information to them. Join us next time. We're heading out now. We'll see you later.
Yeah!